Hey, just in case you never used Logic, I thought I'm gonna include a little crash course here so you see how it's operating this strange little thing called Logic. He will see you up in no time. So have fun. Good luck. Let's assume you never opened Logic before and want to just get started. You don't need to know much, but a few things to get the ball rolling. So open up Logic Pro X from your application folder or from the dock down here, and then this will appear. Open an empty new project. Start with software instrument and hit create. We're going to create one track here. Logic needs one track to get started. Yours might look a little different, so let's see what that might be like. So we can change displays and functions here very easily. Number one, I'd like you to go to the Logic Pro X menu where all the main functions are, and in Preferences, go to Advanced Tools and make sure all these are enabled. Otherwise, it's going to look like GarageBand with a wooden frame here on the side. Make sure all these are checked, and then you have all the powerful functions that Logic has to offer. I'm going to leave surround off. That's only usable if you actually have surround speakers around you. And it could mess you up in the mixdown if you load a sound that comes as surround sound. So leave that off unless you work in surround, which I assume is not the case yet. Okay, we're going to close this. Here, the preferences, by the way, are your preferred settings. Whatever I change here will affect any song that you open. If I change the recording file type, for example, it would be in every song like this. Let's close this. An instrument track is exactly what it says. It's an instrument, but an internal instrument, not the external, as we will see in audio tracks. This one is a sound that comes from within Logic. And we need plugins for that. How do we find those? We need, number one, the library, top left corner. You can open up the library here and you can scout for a sound. So if I wanted to have a piano, I can click piano and double click a sound and it loads plugins. And plugins are software instances that create sounds and then affect sounds as well. So how do I hear the sound? If I go Command K for keyboard, a mini keyboard comes up and I can use my computer keyboard to trigger those sounds with the mouse, but it's not the most comfortable way of playing piano without formal training. If you rather have a real keyboard, you need to have a MIDI controller. So if I close this is good if you're on the road as well. You need to hook up one of these and you need to plug it via USB into your computer. And then you can use your keyboard to trigger the sounds externally. If you don't see a little light flash here, so if I take my record enable off here for a moment, I still see I'm receiving so-called Midi data. These are triggered via Midi. Midi stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, which is the common language since 1982 to trigger sounds on keyboards and other effects. And what it basically does is sends note information and other information, not the sound itself, but I can send a C chord. And then if I say enable a piano here, it will play that C chord. But the sound is not coming from the keyboard, it's coming from the software instruments. And if I would hit record R, that sound wasn't recorded. It was the notes that were recorded. Make this a little bit bigger. Open the piano roll here, double clicking the region. And I could say, yeah, that's cool, but I would rather have a harp sound and change the sound after the fact, which is one of the advantages of MIDI. Use all that note information and change it, and then change even the sound that you're triggering with those notes. Yes, there are also MIDI tracks. If I would make a new track, an external MIDI track records the same information, but it depends on an external instrument with sounds. So if you had a keyboard that has built-in sounds, you can use an external MIDI track and use your Roland, the Yamaha, whatever keyboard it is, Moog. And the software instruments are MIDI as well, but they are triggering internal instruments. So this is when it comes down to MIDI. Now, if I want to record a real instrument, I will have to create a so-called audio track. Again, new track, audio. And if I create an audio track, it looks a little different. And we cannot just load a piano sound here. We actually have to plug in a microphone into a sound card. The sound card converts it to digital information. And then we can receive that. And it shows up a little different. If I make this input 1 here, that plug in my microphone into the input number 1 on my sound card, I can input monitor, and you see my voice is coming up here right now. And then hit R. I could speak into this microphone and record this. And this looks a bit different than the note information. You see the difference. Note information, sound information. That is an audio recording. Of course, I can just highlight both and hit delete and permanently get rid of this right now. That's the nature. When we understand MIDI and audio recording, that's the 2 languages we're going to work with in any DAW. I hope this makes sense so far. Now, what do we need to become efficient in any software? In most software, if you would know 10 to 20 good shortcuts, you're probably already pretty efficient. The rest will come as you do projects and work with it. Now, to develop speed, I would recommend one thing in any software. And that's to leave your left hand on the modifiers or modifying keys. What are the function keys? Command, Option, Control, and Shift. And if I have my left hand here, I can use my right hand on the mouse and do things very quickly. And it will be muscle memory that's going to help you over time to develop speed. For example, what do you know in any software? The command function is very simple because it tells the computer a command, what to do. Command S, is save, or Command Q for quit. Command W, close a window. And I'm sure you know already some of these, like Command C, Command V, copy and paste, etc. Option is basically copy in Logic. Option, drag anything, anywhere, and you will have a duplicate. You'll see that in a minute when we use it. Control-click always brings up a menu. Even in Mac, Control-click your desktop, you can make a new folder, or Control-click a file and you have a menu pertaining to that file. In Logic, it's very similar. Control-click on any area and you have a menu pertaining to that area. For example, Control-click your track and you can change track-related things. Or Control-click your control bar on top and you have a menu that lets you change the functions on your control bar. So wherever you are, Control-click or right-click and you have a menu. So besides the shortcuts that help you speed, and you only need to know a few to get started, there are a couple of good functions here that help you learn the software more easily. This I find a bit confusing after a while, but in the beginning it might give you a little bit of a help when it comes to terminology. Track field, name field. It can be a little bit annoying after a while, but it gives you a bit of an indication in the beginning. More importantly, I find this people always forget about. Help. Well, where do I find help? In the help menu, I say, I want to make a track. And then if you say track, new tracks, and it points you right to the function in the menu and gives you even the shortcut right next to it. New audio track. Okay, I can do it like that. So it's easy to find functions like that. And it's right there. So don't miss out on that. If you use a function 5 times in a row, pay attention to the shortcut, because then maybe it's worth saving it. For example, if I open my library, if I hover here with the mouse, library Y. Okay, then if I open my library all the time, I'm going to start using Y instead. Make sense? Let's say we want to create a project, we want to learn the software a bit. Number 1, you open the project. Where does it go? Better to put it in the right place to begin with. Save as. So let's save it the first time. Save as. If I would just go to Logic, or if I have a hard drive for just music, I would save it there. In this case, I could say this is my Logic test project. And I recommend always saving it as a folder and include the audio files. The package is convenient, but it hides a lot of things, and I think the folder is ultimately a much better way to go. So now we labeled it. Next time I make a good progress, I just go Command S. You see that shortcut here too. Or on my keyboard, Command S. Let's turn on our cycle. You guess the shortcut would be simply C, and it goes both ways. And cycle means people might call it a loop, but the loop is a bit different. But it does loop the section that we select. So I say I wanted to loop a 4-bar section here, and it simply keeps playing round and round in a cycle. I'm going to turn on the metronome. Shortcut K for click. It's a German software originally. And what's my tempo? I want to have a certain tempo, I type it in. I want to have a certain time signature, I simply type it in. So it's pretty logical the way it works. What's the shortcut you can guess to play? Spacebar. And spacebar stops it again. How do you get back to bar 1? I'm going to click C to turn the cycle off. I have two ways. I can hit spacebar and start and stop. I can hit return. Or I can go with a mouse and double click on the ruler here. Say I want to start from bar 9. I simply double click here on the ruler. And the playhead will move from there. So back to my cycle. When the cycle is on, it always goes to bar 1. It jumps back here. Let's scout for some loop to help us build a track. The loop browser holds pre-recorded audio and MIDI phrases that automatically align to your tempo and to your key. That's probably not the end of all we want to use, but it's a great way to learn the software and to put a project together and focus on the functions rather than creating a piece of art. Nevertheless, there's some great ideas in there too, if you need some inspiration. And say we want to look for an instrument that gets us going. How about something simple like a shaker? Anything here now plays at 110. But this was actually originated in 110. So this loop here, on the other hand, was recorded at 90. Nevertheless, this was sped up from 90 to 110. If I would go to 147, it would simply speed up. But there's a limit to that sounding good, of course. Going back to 90, how do you undo things? Command Z, like in any software, would be undo. So Command Z with your left hand, if you leave it there, it's right there. If you make a mistake, no big deal. Command Z it. You see the different colors here, and you see blue as this is blue, and you see green. There are notes. So you already know the difference between these two types of loops. If I take this loop, it creates or generates an audio track. I could also move it on the audio track. I could not move it on the instrument track because it's an audio loop by nature. If you drag it to a new track, it actually labels it conveniently. So I'm going to take a shaker and I'm going to take maybe a green loop too, just to show you the difference. So if I take this one in, I could drag it onto the instrument track or onto a new fresh track. And now I have two loops, one being audio waveform and one being MIDI, which can be altered in much more detail here by changing a note or the pattern altogether. So that's a start, but how do we make a track out of that? Let's X this and go back and say we want to add a piano to this. Now, how do I know how this sounds over these existing loops? First of all, they are only 1 bar long. You see that bar 1 starts here and bar 2 ends here. So they're 1 bar long. And you see that when the moment I start working, the next shortcut I need, I'm going to close this down here, is probably a way to zoom in and out. And the easiest way in the beginning, I tell people, is Command again. And using your left and right and up and down arrows. Perfect. So I need to see the area I'm working in. Otherwise, it's hard to work. I'm going to highlight these guys. Actually, I'm going to highlight one of them and click L. Loop them. And I can stop that loop at the top right corner. If I hover with the mouse, I can stop that loop or adjust it. I can click L again, get rid of the loop, and loop it again. Or shortcuts always work both ways, on and off. Another way to loop it is simply drag the top right corner and extend it. I say top right corner. What's the bottom corner? I could shorten something. Say if I only want half of that loop. I'm going to bring this in and say I only want the first 2 bars of this loop. I can simply drag the bottom right corner and then loop that part. Or say, make this 3 bars. Or just 1 bar. So that's totally up to me. So the bottom right corner is length, and so is the bottom left corner. Say I only want to do that middle bar. I can adjust the length easily with the bottom corners, and I can loop it from the top right corner. And then move it, grab in the middle. It's a bit loud, so here you get a volume. If I highlight the track, I can see it here on the channel strip in the inspector. The inspector lets me see things on each track or each region. The regions are these blocks with information here. So, okay. See how they correlate here. I was saying before, what if I wanted to try a new idea? Let's get out of the piano and see if we find a bass. And maybe instead of genre all, I'm going to pick a different subgenre. So, and you notice they kind of not only match tempo, they also match keys. So I was going into C major right now. So all these default to C. They don't become major when they're minor, but they at least go to the root note. So C is C. If I would be in F, they would be going to F. So I'm going to go hit return because I don't want to change the key in the middle of a phrase and then we had two keys. I'm just saying, what would this whole thing sound in A minor? It's a bit low. I'm going to stick with, let's go to D. D major, but you're going to see it's... And the piano came up too, magically. Yeah, it makes things pretty simple. Okay, so. So I want to try something, but I'm not sure what it's going to sound like. Instead of dragging it in, I can hit play, click on my main window, and then hit this loop. And next time around, okay, so let's drag that in. That sounds pretty good. So you see how this just plays over that in sync. But I want it somewhere different. And I want only half of it. So let's start doing some editing. I'll click O or close my loop browser and say, where do I want this? I want this as a swell building up to the next 4-bar phrase. How could I do this? I could shorten this. But let's be a little bit more precise here. I'm going to delete these notes right here and make sure these guys are long enough. That's kind of cool. So I can play from the beginning, or I can say, let me just hear the end, double click. And I want to change a note there. And the bass, I hear a little different than the bass goes up here. And that's now a little bit of ear training. I just heard that the bass goes up here on the second note. So I wanted to follow that along. Since I know I'm in D and D, okay, I like that little effect. So let's stop this and stop it and even break it for a beat. When I move things, I see the playhead on top, or the ruler, indicating where I'm at. But I also see this little window here. If I zoom in, 4-4-1, 5-1-1. What does that mean? 4th bar, first beat, first 16 note. 5th bar, first beat. 3-1 means 4th bar, 3rd beat. And so forth and so on. The more you zoom in, the finer it goes. But it stays on this thing called the grid, which makes us help things align. Okay, the cool thing is, again, I can still change the tempo. All these loops are flexible. A little different than when you record your own guitars or vocals. That takes a little bit more work and it's something a bit more advanced, but you can change the tempo. But remember that it will change the quality a little bit as well. So I can really fine-tune what I want here. I could now add and more instruments. And I think that's just a good exercise to start learning the software. Lay out a bit of an arrangement. And when you feel comfortable moving things around, then you start recording your own MIDI instrument and your own audio instrument. Before we do that, a couple more things. Number one, when you stop things, you can't always loop them the whole song through. You will want to interrupt something and then bring it back again later on in the song. You need to know how to copy things. And copy anything in Logic. Here it is clearly, anything is Option and drag. Holding down the Option key with your middle finger and then say, I want to drag this over. The plus sign comes up. But I could copy all kinds of things. I could say, I want to copy this note, hold down Option, and I have a copy of the note. So anything can be copied that way. I can grab a bunch of things from the outside, drag over it, hold down Option, and here we go. Perfect. So Option drag is very important. Anytime a window pops up, you can double click it, and P is also piano roll if you want to edit the notes. So that way, I could say now, okay, now this is my intro, bar 5, I'm going to come in with a drum of sorts. Let's go back, X this. I'm actually in string, I'm going to go back to all genres and see what we have in the drum categories. Ton of things. And of course, this very much depends on the style you're going to go for. But if I go, actually put this at bar 5, I'm going to close my loop browser, move this cycle over here. And if I'm not sure, I can mute this temporarily and try something completely. Okay, this is how it goes. Now you wanted to record some of your own instruments over that. Number 1, Midi. All you have to do is make sure your MIDI controller triggers. Find something that works, and it could be as simple if you don't play, as in, when I hit the letter R, it gives me a count-in. And that's because in the record menu, you're going to see by default, we have 1 bar count-in. If you need more time, go 2 bars. But I like to have a bar or 2 count-in, set my cycle, and say, this is where I want to record. And then hit R, and you have a count-in of 1 bar, and then play the notes. I don't like it, I stop and delete. Practice until I find something I like, and then hit record. And once you play something, it's super simple to go in there and see the notes. If we click on this piano roll window, Command up and down, left and right, or I can also say, let me click in here, and we're going to go Command A. And you probably know that means select all. And I selected all my notes in here, and then click Z for zoom, and I see them all in one window. Make it a little smaller here. And I want to fix a couple of them. So MIDI, the advantage is we can easily fix things by quantizing. So again, Command A, I'm selecting all my notes, or if you just want to select a few notes, you drag over them, but I'm going to go Command A and say, I want to put these on a certain timing. And because I'm playing pretty slowly, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, I could probably get away with 8 notes. Or I play close enough to the 16th note that that's a good average value, and I click Q and watch these notes. I'm going to zoom in so you can see better how this one, for example, triggered too early. So that means it would be a little bit off time. If I want to make it perfect, I can click Q. And now, and if I want to be not 100%, but a bit more human than that, I could go quantize it 80%. So it's halfway, 50% would be halfway towards the perfect location. 100% dead on the spot. So I can make things a bit more human too if it's a piano part and I want to keep a little bit of a human feel, for example. In electronic music, I might want to go super tight on some of the stuff, but it's up to your discretion. Now, what did I say about MIDI? Let's solo this. Let's change the instrument. So I have 2 choices. I can simply go through my library, scroll back to the top level, see all my instruments. But if I'm not sure, I could make a copy of the track first. How do we copy? Same thing, Option, drag. I have a copy, I'm going to mute one. And then scout and see if I find another sound. What if it would be a synthesizer? What if it would be a plucked sound? So you have, of course, a million sounds, and some of them are not appropriate and some of them are quite good. And then you can buy more sounds as you grow and get deeper into production. Let's say I like this one. Maybe together with a harp. And I can bell. I feel like this one could have a little bit more eeriness. So every sound now has not only a synthesizer or a plugin making the sound, it has also a bunch of effects. And since there is already an effect called delay here, let's add a little echo. I'm going to bring up. So this is not the time to go into all of these effects, but they do affect like pedals for a guitar player. The guitar goes through one by one and affect your sound. I'm going to go out of solo, clear. So that is Midi, and the sky is the limit, however good your sound are and however good your performance. The good thing about Midi, again, is that you can change everything, quantize, fix things very easily. The bad thing about Midi is that it's never the real thing. So you have to use them as they fit. Now, if you make an electronic drum beat, it's exactly the thing you want. But if you want to make something a bit more organic, then Midi will be always limited. It will be only as good as your plugin and however well you know how to use this plugin. So a good piano sound, you have to tweak a bit until it sounds as good as you can. If you want the real thing though, you would have to take an audio track, say I'm going to record a guitar or a voice, and then set up your microphone. And then of course, then that depends on the quality of your performance and your microphone. So now I could simply record audio over this. So I recorded a snap. Let's see what that sounds like. I recorded something, but it sounds rather dry. So you see how I can solo this easily here. So let's clean this up a little bit. It's super dry. We can now affect, as we did this, here the sound is coming from the synth and then going through effects, but here the sound is coming actually from the audio region. And now we can add audio effects. And on an audio track, I have a little bit of a different menu because it's not synthesizers and pianos and drum machines. It's simply effects. So say I want a drum and percussion effect. Let's see, percussion. Do I have something? What if I load a shaker plugin setting or effect setting? It puts some ambience to it. Not bad. And I can actually What's cool though is you can see even in this simple example how one real thing on top of electronic things adds a different flavor, a different dimension. So I would always recommend, even if it's an electronic track, put something in there that's yours, not just a preset made loop or a plugin, something nobody else has. And that makes it immediately a little bit more unique. So you create a project, and I recommend do a couple of those if you never used Logic before you do this course, and then lay out an arrangement. You can make tracks pretty easily, and it might not be the end of all, but they get you going. You can learn how to copy, to zoom, to delete, to shorten things. And you see the flow of Logic is pretty simple, like that. When we're done, we're going to hit Command S, save. And next time we want to open it, we're simply going to go open Logic, and we can also go open recent and see where our last project was that we just used, and we opened it and keep working on it. Okay, so that should get you started on a little bit of a Logic adventure tour. Have fun and be unapologetically creative.